listening to Second Wind with Joyce Buford, where women who are ready to expand their life adventure discover the tools to stop playing small and tap into the courage required to enjoy their second wind. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I am delighted to know that you're listening to Second Wind today, and that maybe you need a second wind. We all do. In this heat that we're all living under right now, everybody's looking for another wind. So anyway, we're going to talk about a subject today that has become almost a national epidemic, and it has touched more families. And so I am thrilled that we get to talk about this with my guest. My guest is Christiana Egi. Did I say it right? Yes. Yes. I love to change these names. If my listeners could tell you, they would tell you this. But anyway, she's from Toronto, Canada. And I am so impressed with her accomplishments that she's been able to do. She is an exceptional dementia advocate who brings a wealth of experience as a registered nurse, diabetes educator, registered natural health nutritionist, and a geriatric and mental health specialist. Now, I know each one of you knows somebody out there that can be changed and affected by this woman's skills. Now, she is now endeavoring to provide compassionate care for individuals living with dementia and their families. She has established Alexis Lodge Retirement Residence. Is it Alexa?
Alexis.
Alexis. And it is a memory care retirement facility committed to person-centered and relational care for individuals living with Alzheimer's and other types of dementia. Welcome. You must be 102 with all of the time that you've been studying, and you're not. You're very young.
For having me, Joyce.
Oh, I'm delighted you're here because this is a really a major disease. Is it called a disease? Yes, that affects so many families?
Yes. Dementia itself is not a disease, but a group of symptoms that affect memory, behavior, abilities to do things and so forth. But under that name, under that umbrella of dementia, there are several types. Alzheimer's is the most common type of dementia. Then you have vascular dementia, which results from vascular diseases. You have Lewy body dementia. You could have mixed dementia if you have two types of dementias. There's Korsakoff dementia. There's just so many types of dementia, but the most common that is affecting maybe over 70% of people with dementia is Alzheimer's. That is why most people know of Alzheimer's.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard to know, really. I mean, I shared with you that I've had two people in my family over my growing years, my father and then my sister, but who have had dementia or Alzheimer's. One of them, they were never specifically called anything by the doctor, but it is very demanding on the families, to support these people, and they don't understand it, many of us. So I know that, what was it that pulled you into this area of medicine, that you felt so compelled to it be your primary focus?
Yeah, it actually started over about 40 years ago, exactly this year, in my first year as a student nurse back in Nigeria. In my first mental health rotation, which was preceded by, scary tales of horror, But when we arrived on site, the people there were just like you and I. They were scary. They liked things that we liked. We danced, and I had so much fun that day, but I was actually heartbroken because of the stigma that surrounded them. And that was when I decided that I would do my path in helping to eradicate stigma around mental illness. But when I graduated, I had the opportunity to migrate to Canada. And I thought for sure, Canada being a more developed country, things would be different. So when I arrived here, I was fortunate enough to work in one of actually Canada's largest psychiatric hospital. I worked on the crisis unit. I very quickly came to understand that the stigma was a global issue. It wasn't just because I was in Nigeria, that people with mental illness are not treated with the same respect and dignity like everyone else. And so I worked there for 10 years, and I'll come home every day and just vent to my late husband, Anthony, telling him, about the conditions that some patients will come in, into the hospital in. And it was very, very much like a revolving door. So we stabilize them. They go back out there into the community, but they don't have support. No one is encouraging them to take their medications or help, So most of them will come back over and over again. And that was really traumatizing for me. And he would wait patiently. So after the birth of our third child, Alexis, he then invited me to do something about that which I've been complaining so much about. But at that point, I decided that I wanted to take up seniors. I wanted to go the dementia route. So we created the first home, a very familiar, comfortable, and caring, loving home for people with dementia, so they can live just as if they were in their own home when their families could no longer care for them. So that was how we started out. And then eventually we got the second home. Luckily, they are side by side. But the story or the pain in my heart did not stop there, because it actually got worse. Although I was so happy with the results, the impact that we're making in these individuals' lives, but family involvement was really, really restricted. It was very limited, because out of 21 residents at any given time, I may not even have 7 families that participated. There were families that we never saw. We became family to these individuals. And anyone would jump into judgment, like these families don't care. And of course, that crossed my mind. But very quickly, I came to realize that this journey is so difficult, especially when you don't understand it. So you've been caring for your mom or dad or maybe uncle or aunt, giving them all your love, pouring everything into them, maybe even forgetting to care for yourself. So you could experience burnout. Or part of this disease, up to 40% of people that have dementia will have behavioral issues. They could become paranoid, accusing you of stealing, and they don't want anything to do with you, or they could become aggressive and hit out and stuff like that. So if you don't understand the disease, a lot of people take this to heart. So when they come to their breaking point and they move their loved ones into facilities, a lot of them then fall off, because now maybe they are looking after themselves, or they're still holding that pain in their hearts. So that was why I decided maybe I should start writing books in the disease, but I wanted to write them in children's voices so that they'll be easy to digest and less threatening. So whenever you pick up this book, even as an adult, you read it, you understand, because these books are packed with experiences, life experiences that I've had over these couple of decades of caring for people. So I did that. But I still felt it wasn't enough, because there are so many people out there in my years of experience who need help. Some are two older couples, like in their 90s, caring for each other. There's not enough support out there. There are several resources, but not nearly enough for these individuals. So what do we do? How do we help them? In my time, I've tried to help. I take people in that can afford to be in my home. But as a widow, I can't do any more than I've done. So
Yes.
that was why I decided to start a charitable organization so that we can help support these individuals, especially the underserved communities of Blacks, Indigenous, and people of color, where, there's so much stigma around this disease that people need more support and they need better understanding so that they can seek proper care. So that is what I've been doing to raise awareness, educate, and destigmatize mental health and dementia.
Tell me, where does a family take their loved one when they are beginning to show signs of, and what would be some of the first signs? That would be another question.
Yes.
Which question would you like to answer first?
So the one thing is, yes, with different types of dementia, it does occur differently. Like, so with Alzheimer's, especially, there are 7 warning signs, like if people are not able to do what they used to do. People are not able, for instance, your loved one doesn't remember how to cook, or they cannot, balance their books, their, budget anymore. They start to forget things. You ask your mom to pick up a bag of milk. She comes back with eggs, or maybe she completely forgets, but she gives you an excuse that, oh, she did not want, those type of little things that, people are not able to, you're not able to make executive decisions anymore. Like, they ask you something, you're not able to actually come out and say it. So there are little things that happen. And oftentimes we sort of think it's old age, but it's dementia is not old age. The difference is if you are forgetting because of old age, you will remember that you are forgetting. But when you have dementia, you don't even remember that you are forgetting. So,
good.
Losing your key doesn't mean you have dementia, but losing your key and not even knowing that you lost your key, that's a problem. Or you leave the stove on and you forget to turn it off, or you put your shoes in the fridge. There are so many little things. So you become very disorganized. Your room is a mess. And meanwhile, this person was very meticulous. So, but it's also very difficult when you live under the same roof with the individual, because some of these are very subtle, right? But once you start to have concern, the first thing is go to your family doctor.
Family doctor.
And ask for a referral to a specialist for them to be properly assessed. Like in Toronto here, we have like the Scarborough Memory Clinic, the Toronto Memory Clinic, we have the Gain Clinic. So we have some clinics where you can actually go for proper, diagnosis and treatment. Unfortunately, some primary care physicians don't refer people on. They start try to treat it, and they give medication, and the spouses don't know what to do. They become frustrated as things get worse.
And even some of the medication, I've sort of had an experience with this, and I was listening. I'm a big YouTube listener as well, and there was something about this woman was a doctor, and she was talking about the 7 things that can affect the brain. And it was some of the medications that the doctor would give, not realizing you had other medications that would not work with this medication. So I guess you go to your pharmacist for a check.
Yes, the thing is, it's very important that you have continuity of care. Don't jump from a lot of unfortunately do go to different doctors and fill different prescriptions. Even old prescriptions, they continue, especially when you hop pharmacies. So you have one file here, you have another file there. If you go to the same pharmacy, they are able to look at your medications, consult with your doctor, so it's very important that, again, unfortunately, if that particular individual is now in a dementing process where the brain is going through dementia, they may not remember, right? So they would not know. So it's very important that we check in on our seasoned family member. Make sure that we check the cupboards, look at expiration date on medications and things like that. But I wouldn't say that the medications, they could cause symptoms of maybe cognitive impairment or, confusion, but it's not, medications are not what is causing the disease. So there are something called reversible dementia. So even if it's from a medication, that will be reversed. But if it's dementia, especially Alzheimer's, it's a very slow and progressive disease. It's like a 20-year disease where you have no symptoms, but the damage is happening in your brain.
Oh, yes.
And then the vascular dementia is when you have uncontrolled high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, and other causes that affect your blood vessels. And then you start to have what they call TIAs, mini strokes. If you have damage, it damages different parts of the brain, then you start to, lose memory in that center that is damaged. So that it's really important that you get properly assessed and then get a proper treatment plan. All
so
that.
You go to your family doctor. That's step one, right?
Yes. And get a referral on to see a specialist, go with your concerns. And if you have memory care centers like we do here in Toronto, then go to those centers also. Some of those places you can self-refer if you actually have enough concerns to make you go there.
The type of homes that you were describing that I guess you started, right? The 2 houses. How did you learn to do that? That is how my sister also experienced in Minnesota, where they would do home facilities, houses, and each person got a room. And then they had central space that everybody used, and they ate together. And that's the same way your home is designed.
Like a group home. And I personally see for people with dementia, the smaller home-like environments, because as you start to lose your memory, you need familiar things. You need things that you can, because the core memory lasts for a long time. And you need a lot of attention. So when you're in a big, huge facility, you could get lost because you want people to direct you to where you should go to. You might be going to the dining room, you get confused and you start walking round and round and so forth. Whereas when you are in a home-like environment, and there's a lot of care, it's high touch, because in my home, I can go through the home within 5 minutes. I can see everyone. We congregate, So stimulation, because your brain needs a lot of stimulation to keep it going, rather than, because when you have dementia and you are isolated, you actually decline. And that was one of the biggest things that happened during COVID. When people were isolated, a lot of people declined and things were really bad for them. So just having that familial setting where you can, talk to somebody else, or even if you're not talking to someone, you can hear them conversing. You can see activities happening, especially if the home is one that has a kitchen or kitchenette. You can smell food, things that just stimulate the senses and keep you alive, So yeah, those are much better for people with dementia, smaller settings that where their needs, where they can have their needs met, where it might just be redirection that somebody needs.
Right. I would believe in the small town where I live, we have a lot of we call them retirement homes, but I would think that's probably where a lot of our dementia patients probably go if they don't go to the home of their loved ones. Because we don't have one of those fabulous homes like
A,
you're creating.
a lot
Yeah.
of bigger homes these days are starting to open dementia units in the bigger homes. So that's what
Oh,
we're starting to do.
in
So
the like the retirement homes, they congregate them in a section.
yes, so they
Yes.
have units for people with dementia. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
homes are doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing is, it has to be adapted to feel and look like a home. So there's a lot that goes. It's not just creating an area and saying this is for dementia people, right? You still
Mm-hmm.
have to make it purposeful for them.
Oh,
So like, either adapting a home to suit the needs or a space, but not just, because sometimes people with dementia wander. So it's not just creating a locked,
oh yes. Mm-hmm.
area for people. No. So you have to make it very familiar. You have to make it comfortable. You have to make it look, suitable
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
supportive, and where they can be themselves. Like people with dementia, the other thing is you cannot put them on a schedule. That is what person-centered care means. It means we are all unique individuals, and dementia does not affect two people exactly the same way because we have our uniqueness.
Mm-hmm.
If somebody is in your home and they don't want to get up at 10 o'clock, if they want to be up at 11, you should be able to accommodate them.
I see.
So you need structure, but
Mhm.
you also have to take individual needs as priorities, so
Mhm.
structure and repetition is very good to stimulate the mind.
Right. Yeah. Well, tell us about how your books, you decided to go to using books. You wrote them. So, did you have fun writing those books?
Yes, I did. In the books, I'm able to share some experiences, and a lot of people will read my books and say, "Oh my God, that resonated so well with me." So people will cry, because it's just, it's there's something about knowing that someone else understands what you're going through. There's,
Mhm.
there's a lot about community, when you're going through something, because a lot of families, there's a lot of friction and conflict in families of people that are living with dementia, because those people that are not caregivers do not understand the extent and the demands of caring for somebody with dementia. Somebody may not sleep at night, somebody may, it's the struggle is real for caregivers, either professional or family caregivers. So in these books, you will read about experiences like, okay, for instance, in my second book, when grandpa was developing dementia, it was Thanksgiving, and they had to bring, himself and grandma had to bring the turkey. So they got there to the children's home, and there was no turkey. Grandpa forgot it.
Oh, no. Of course.
And he blamed it on grandma, running late. So
Yeah.
those type of things, right? So
Uh-huh.
it's just when you read those things, because sometimes when you go through living with dementia, when you have a loved one, some of these things you have to laugh about. You don't get upset.
Right.
A lot of families will become uptight and, oh my goodness, this is the main dish, right? But his daughter, who is a nurse, just pulled out her phone and ordered maybe KFC or something,
Yeah.
or that chicken in. So there are ways that you can mitigate these things, right? So
Yeah.
those are the type of stories you will read in my book. It's like I said, it's not about forgetting your key that will make you feel like you have dementia. Is forgetting that, is not even knowing that you forgot your key. So again, grandpa in the second book gets into the car with the grandchildren. He had his key, but he did not know what he should use it for. Don't know how to put it in the ignition.
Ah.
Yeah, so he touched the dashboard, he touched the mirror, he touched everything, and he did not know what to do. So when
Oh.
the children then went with him to go get grandma understood exactly what was going on. So like some cases, people will be driving around and around their neighborhood, the same neighborhood they've lived in for 40 years, but they forget their home. That's another, like,
Yeah.
it
Right.
just manifests in different ways.
Well, it is really important. I think that I'm sure it was very stressing, that whole forgetting the turkey thing. But I think there is some recovery, even if you can go to your book and see the same example, very similar, forgetting the turkey, and laugh at it. And it changes the whole experience of the turkey and eating late, and nobody has any food. It can get really blown out of but
So many things, yeah.
yeah.
Someone is starting to burn up dinner because they
Yes.
forget that it's cooking. So what do you do in that case? You take measures, safety measures. Maybe you put a switch on that stove so they can no longer turn it on, because if their memory is far gone, they would not know where to look for that switch or
Oh,
take
yeah.
off the handles. So it's not about somebody moving into a facility. So it's like, how do you help them, manage behaviors in their own home for as long as possible? Some families are able to care for their loved ones throughout the process at home. Sometimes you need a facility, because what I tell people is, if your loved one starts staring at the four corners of the house, doesn't know what to do, you're not there to help. And, they only watch TV or sleep. A lot of people will just sleep a lot. That means they need more stimulation. So could it be just, going to an adult club during the day to get that stimulation? Or could it be that you can no longer support them at home? So there are different stages of the process. So knowing what this process is, the possibilities, the ups and the downs of it actually helps you, because they say a problem known is half solved. So that is why it is so important for loved ones to learn all they can about dementia when that diagnosis comes down on a loved one.
Yeah. Now you have a podcast?
Yes, I do.
Oh, good.
It's called our Forever Young podcast.
Oh,
And
very good.
the reason I started that was because I looked at my resident population. I actually had 100-year-old, like you said, your mother was
Yeah.
100, who could still go up and down the stairs and take care of himself. He
Mhm.
needed very minimal care. By the same token, sometimes I have the 70s and 80s who, even just to get out of a chair is so difficult.
Yes.
And then you start to wonder, what is the difference here? Like, we all need to deposit into our health bank, banks, as we age. What you do, how you care for yourself, what you eat, your activity levels, all these things come into play later in your lifetime. So that is why we started the Forever Young podcast, just informing friends and families, listeners, how to live a healthy lifestyle. Because Alzheimer's, for instance, which has no known cause, at least previously, no known cause, there are other types of, there are so many things, like science is saying, oh, it's type 3 diabetes, but they are now saying 40% of Alzheimer's can be prevented by just simple lifestyle change. Yeah, some of the bigger hospitals, so they're saying there is a way we can actually prevent this. So that is what that Forever Young podcast is about. We talk about healthy lifestyles, healthy eating, exercise, sleep, stress management. And especially, I know there's this joke about, age is just a number. Every time I read, they talk about age and weight. I don't want to look at numbers anymore. But there are certain numbers that are very important. Your blood pressure, your blood sugar. Those numbers are so important. Your cholesterol. Even cholesterol, that's another thing that is debatable because they say, it doesn't matter, in some cases. So
Right.
if you can mitigate those problems, you control your blood sugar, you control your blood pressure, the damage to blood capillaries that serve your brain or your heart and important organs may not happen. You will not have those little strokes that will lead
Oh, yes.
to dementia in most cases. So there's so much that we can do to keep ourselves healthy and forever young.
Yes, forever young. Okay, now how many books do you have?
I have published 2.
Two.
The third one is being released next month on August 19th.
And what is its title?
Unraveled.
Unraveled.
Yes.
Yes.
And that book is about burnout, like, how the COVID pandemic has touched everyone to some degree, caregivers and people living with dementia alike, and just helping everyone to understand what it is. Like, if you don't do self-care, if you don't put on your own oxygen mask first, whether you are a parent, a caregiver, a teacher, like, look at a lot of healthcare workers, they've quit their jobs, they burnt out from this pandemic. So those type of things. So when you read that book and you look at what transpired with grandpa, why the grandchildren were suspicious that he had Alzheimer's like grandma, then you will learn along the way what you can do to prevent burnout. Like, yeah.
So those things that we really need to pay attention to would be diet, exercise, and how about brains? What?
Sleep, stress.
Sleep, stress.
Yes.
And how about those games? Is it important to play games?
Any activity that stimulates the brain. You have to keep your brain working. Like, what does exercise do for you? It increases your blood flow, it increases your endorphins and stuff like that. Dancing, dancing for life.
Oh yeah, dancing. Oh yeah, that would have been a good one.
Community, social engagement. There's so many things. It's a buffet of things you have to do to maintain a healthy lifestyle. So it's not just one thing. It's not about going to the gym. You could go to the gym, but if you're not feeding your body the proper nutrition, your cells are not going to reproduce good cells, right? You could go to the gym if you're not sleeping properly,
True.
Yes,
but I was told that you shouldn't take melatonin. Is that one of those you shouldn't take?
I see, I'm not a doctor, but I know that the body actually produces melatonin is something that the body produces naturally.
Oh, really?
Yes, the body actually produces melatonin, but as you age, it decreases.
Oh, everything decreases as you age.
Melatonin helps with sleep.
Right.
So again, when it comes to that, just talking to your health practitioner, maybe what is good for one is not good for the other.
Yeah.
Having a good, plan, healthcare plan, and if you're not happy with what you're getting from one doctor, go to somebody else. There are so many healthy things that we can do. Stress is another big thing. If you're stressed,
big.
you'll not be able to sleep. Stress is actually the number one killer, not heart disease. Like they say, you can die from stress. So like just having a balance. We cannot, when health is a continuum, you just want to try and be as close to the middle as possible rather than, the illness part. You want to be as close to the middle of the health part of that continuum. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so much good information here. We may have to do part 2, part 3. This is Christina again. She's just written her 6th book.
I actually have 4, but I'm publishing the third one. The reason I pushed back my 4th book, it's actually on mixed dementia. So when I wrote my first book, I wrote 3 together: Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, and mixed dementia. But I've just been spreading out the publications. I decided to push that book back again because, like I said, burnout is more relevant today. We are in a mental health crisis. Thanks to the pandemic, COVID pandemic. It did a lot of good, but it also did a lot of bad. So how do we mitigate those problems? There are people that are going through burnout that don't even know, and their doctors cannot diagnose them because test results are not showing what they're complaining about. You say you have stomach pain, they've done every test. It doesn't show that there's anything wrong, but you know you have that. So why don't you look for help elsewhere? Why don't you see somebody? Because the body reacts differently to stress. So those are the type of things. That's why I felt the need to bring this book forth now. And then next year, God willing, the 4th book will be published, which will be, it's called Dancing with Memories.
Oh, what a lovely title.
Yes.
Yay. Every woman will want that one. Now, what's the name of the first book?
A Rose for Grandma.
Oh, I saw that.
Yes, A Rose for Grandma, A Journey Through Alzheimer's.
Okay.
Because everyone living with dementia deserves a rose from all of us.
Yes.
Yeah, so that is the title.
Well, I will add my little comment here that I think the pandemic has left us all much more aggressive. To get on the roads in Texas now, I know in California, it's always been that way. But in Texas, I mean, beware of driving slow or within the limits. It just seems like everybody is much more aggressive to me.
I don't know that it's an aggression rather than maybe irritation, frustration, and this is burnout. People are frustrated. People want to get things done. Like why are they being so aggressive? So that is the thing. We need to take care of our mental health. We need to eradicate that stigma. Talk to somebody. If you're not feeling up to par, talk to somebody. Like imagine somebody who is now working from home. They don't have that social engagement anymore. And there's a lot of frustration, or somebody that lost their job. Or there's so many, or maybe that individual probably have a loved one that they are caring for that is frustrating them. So it's always good to take a step back and just, put yourself in someone else's shoes before reacting. The senseless killings. Like there's so much that is happening today because people are just completely overwhelmed.
Where can we go to buy your book?
It's on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and most online stores.
Yeah.
The books are there. And you can also check out my website at christianaegi.com.
And that's EGI.
Yes, please.
Little unusual.
The podcast is on our Forever Young podcast, on Apple Podcast, and everywhere podcasts are held. And the retirement home is AlexisLodge.com. And the charity, which I actually named after my first book, A Rose for Grandma Wellness Hub, you can get that at aroseforgrandma.com.
Okay. Say that one more time.
A Rose for Grandma.
.com. Yeah. Okay. Is there something special about A Rose for Grandma? Are you thinking of your grandmother?
What do you do for someone you love? You give them
the rose.
right? So I just feel like we all, like I said earlier, we need to raise roses to everyone that their voices have been stifled by dementia. We need to, let them know that we care, we are here for them, and we'll amplify their voices and
Mhm.
help them get the help that they need and the support, and
Yeah.
also help the families, because it's not just an individual disease, it's a family disease, it's a community disease,
Yeah.
and it can be very devastating. So as much support as we can offer is welcomed.
Well, thank you for being on Second Wind. Your information is so valuable to anybody that is going through that. And I would dare say there is one person out there that hasn't been touched by the aging of their grandparents and their parents. And they may have had some of these symptoms that we've talked about today. So thank you. It has been a pleasure. I can hardly wait until I can go check on some of these books.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Good.
Yes.
Now, I want to talk to my listeners just a minute. And I wanted to, I know there are so many of you out there that has an aunt, an uncle, grandparent, perhaps your parents that may have showed some of the early signs of dementia. And it's so important that you could be the key to get your loved one to the right person. So if you are interested, and you've got this information now, if you know there's somebody out there that could use this information, just guide them to this podcast that will be on and let them listen to it from Christina so that they can get an idea. But you can certainly be the guide to get them there. So anyway, as usual, I love that you were here today. You made the whole hour so much more enjoyable to know that we were bringing this message to you. I learned a lot myself, and I look forward to talking further with Christina. We may need to have her back on Second Wind. So anyway, I say goodbye to you all now, and you have a great day and a great week. Talk to you next week. Bye.
Joyce Buford returns next week at the same time for another edition of Second Wind. Through the Joyce Buford Empowerment System, women are receiving the support they need through their transitions and are able to reclaim their true purpose with confidence. They receive the tools they need to map out new lives. You can find out more about her coaching services at joycebufordempowers.com.